Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Ruff, Tam McManus and Alison McConnell here with me on this Bank Holiday Monday. Great to have your company. You can follow us on our Facebook page. You can share the stream. And if you hit the red button now on YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel and join the football family. Simple as that. Lots to talk about. Of course, the Old Firm game, the final one of the season domestically, was won by Rangers by 4-1. A convincing win against the 10 men of Celtic. Were they worthy winners for you, Roughie?
Yeah, I think after McGregor gets sent off, it looked pretty level up to then, both teams at it. But I think after McGregor gets sent off, it was one-way traffic for Rangers. Again, Celtic had chances and never took them. Rangers got chances and took them and scored some good goals. And I think at the end, if you're a Celtic player, you just want to go off the park because Rangers were absolutely ruthless when they went down to 10 men. But it's been that kind of season all year for Celtic. So it's one you just want to get finished and start for next year. But all credit to Rangers. They did what they had to do. They went about their business and won the game quite comfortably in the end.
If you're talking about special goals, Tam, Kemar Roof's first one for me was just a touch of class. He's scored 2 cracking goals this season for us to remember. One from the halfway line in the Europa League, and this one with the chest. I mean, that was quick thinking.
Yeah, it was. It was a great goal. I said very clever. I knew exactly what he was doing. Ball come in, used the pace of the cross to divert it past Bain, and as I said, the game changes with the goal and the immediate red card. Celtic are banging up against it, but Rangers, you're right, totally ruthless. Took their opportunities. Celtic again created 3-4 great opportunities and missed them. And another thing as well, McGregor makes a great save, the one off the crossbar. When was the last time you actually said a Celtic goalkeeper's made a great save? A game-changing save. Whether it be Bain or Barkas or Hazard, whoever it was. The Celtic goalkeepers just don't make saves. Bain looked a bag of nerves. Everything was bouncing off him. He got away with it a couple of times, and I think Morelos' goal, I think he could maybe do a bit better. It was kind of right at him, but McGregor makes big saves in big games, and Celtic goalkeepers this season, I'm afraid, just haven't.
Yeah, well, I thought Rangers would win. I said that on Friday, Alison, because I don't see anything from Celtic that suggests to me otherwise. The belief's gone. Certainly that free-flowing football that you would associate that they triumphed in many an Old Firm game over the last 3 or 4 years, gone. And the side that finished the game, you'll be lucky if you see 1 or 2 of them remaining in the side that starts next season.
Absolutely. I think it's very difficult to quantify the magnitude now of the job that needs done in terms of rebuilding. I think that the biggest thing for a new manager to address is the mental fragility that just seems endemic within the team now. I just think the lack of conviction, the lack of belief, it is one aspect that they're going to have to address, because the psychology of the fixture has flipped entirely. This is a Rangers team now who will be relishing every game that comes up in the way that Celtic did going back 2-3 years ago, because they know that they have the firm upper hand in the fixture. I don't think you can underestimate how big that is, nor how big a performance it takes to change it around. In terms of personnel, I think there'll be a clear out. I think you would struggle right now to make a compelling case for any more than 1 or 2 to survive what has been an utterly inept campaign.
As far as Steven Gerrard was concerned, they had a game plan for the game.
I'm really pleased with the performance. Obviously, these derby games are about big moments, and you prepare for them and you do whatever you can to make sure that the big moments go your way. And we started the game really well. We picked a real aggressive and bold shape today, and we wanted to really go for Celtic's throat. And we done that and took the lead.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, some could suggest that maybe the game changed when Celtic went down to 10 men. But apart from an opening salvo, Tam, where Celtic looked as if they were up for the game, Rangers just slowly but surely get back into the rhythm. Scored good goals, McGregor with his usual contribution, and of course Jermaine Defoe coming on and getting his old firm goal.
Yeah, listen, I think that depending on the red card, I still think Rangers would have won the game. I just think they're more ruthless now in both boxes. The goalkeeper's at it, he makes big saves. In the final third, Rangers didn't miss many chances. They were very, very clinical. And I think that's been the case all season. Rangers have took their opportunities and Celtic haven't, and that's been a big difference. But a guy like Jermaine Defoe coming on, he's nearly 40 years old, playing against a young kid in Welsh, and twisted him into the ground, didn't you, to unscrew him after the game. Great footwork in there, from an older player. Shifted one way, shifted his weight the other way, and tucked it away. But Jermaine Defoe's been doing that for 20 years, and he'll keep doing it as long as he's fit enough to do it. So that was just icing in the cake for Rangers. But Rangers the last 20-25 minutes were just toying with Celtic, and I feel as if it could have been 4 or 5, 6 easy if they wanted it to be.
Yeah, and as far as the red card for Callum McGregor, John Kennedy thought it was harsh.
I think it's a bad decision. Not the second one, the red card, because he's on a yellow and he makes a tackle on the ground. But I asked the referee for clarity at half time, why did you book him in the first and before that? Why did you give him a yellow card? And his words to me exactly were, it was a reckless challenge. It wasn't reckless, I've seen it. It wasn't reckless. He's never been went to ground. There was no malice, there was no intent in the tackle in terms of any sort of power behind it. So I think, again, big game for a young official, who doesn't have a lot of experience. And he makes a very harsh call, which then costs us in the end.
Well, I think he might be clutching at straws.
I agree with him.
I think he might be clutching at straws, Roughie. What about the second one? I mean, Callum McGregor is experienced enough. He's got a yellow. Whether he thinks it's a yellow or not, he's got one. Why dive in?
Yeah, you can see the reaction once he's done it. He knows what he's done. It is, I don't think there is any malice in it, but it's a yellow card. And the first one's a yellow card as well. It's his trailing leg that catches him, but it catches him. In any other game, it's a yellow card. So I think John Kennedy's now fallen into that manager's role now that he's in press conferences. He's got a different view to everybody else, but he's learning day by day. But no, it's 2 yellow cards for me, no doubt about it.
Yeah, managers, Ali, I always try and emphasise to any journalist that's working with us, managers have this great tendency to paint pictures that no one else can see on a game.
Yeah, I think that it's 2 yellow cards. I think you're speaking in the emotion and the heat of the moment straight after the game. I just wonder in reflection if John Kennedy might himself just concede that, one, not only did I think it was 2 yellow cards, but 2, I don't think that was the reason why Celtic lost the game yesterday. I think a failure to take the chances they created and just that constant, the porous element of the defence, that every time someone's getting in behind them, it looks like a goal. I think it's been this season in microcosm.
Yeah, absolutely. Steven Gerrard, though, has got a team that has the chance to remain undefeated in the league this season. And, of course, he's already looking at next season and thinking, I've got to take it on again.
I've been around the game long enough, even though I'm an inexperienced manager, if you like, to know that you can't stand still. We've got to still identify areas of our group and our team where we can help them, where we can get stronger, because we're not the finished team. We're not the finished article just because we've been fantastic in one league campaign and again we've been impressive in Europe. There's still areas and more consistency that we need to strive for.
Yeah, as far as Rangers are concerned, Roughie, they've got the nucleus of a side there. He'll want to try and convince the board to back him just to add another couple of players, maybe 1, 2, 3, sprinkling to enhance the squad that he has.
Yeah, obviously every manager wants to strengthen, and that's what he's done. That's been his format, to strengthen every year. It just remains to be seen behind the scenes, do they need to balance the book a wee bit, because there's obviously been a lot of money thrown out to everybody with this virus that we've all had to deal with. So I'll be looking at the books, I think Rangers supporters will be hoping they don't have to unload one of their big players. And they can keep them and build on for next year. But we'll have to wait and see on that one, because lot of clubs, not just Rangers, have lost lots and lots of money this year, and they might just have to readdress and maybe tighten a wee bit. But I still think he can identify players, the kind of players he has identified, to take them a wee bit forward.
I still think, Tam, they're going to cash in one, maybe two.
Yeah, I think they've got to, Peter. I think that every club, in the summer when it comes to it, you've got to be looking to maybe sell a couple of players, particularly over the last year and a half. But it's been really tough times with COVID. Clubs are losing a lot of money, so I think that Rangers will look to try and cash in on one or two of their good assets and use that money to strengthen the squad. As Stephen Gerrard said there, not the finished article. He's got positions in there. I didn't think the lad Simpson had a great game at the weekend. So he's maybe looking at a strengthening at the centre half. So I think Morelos is a key one. I think if they can keep a hold of him, Champions League football is a big carrot. If they can keep a hold of him for another season and persuade him to stay, then I think that would be huge because he was back to his real best in the weekend. Great goal he scored, led the line well. And he would relish the opportunity, I think, to go and play at the highest level in Europe. So it'll just be guys like him and Barisic and maybe Ryan Kent as your three. Maybe Rangers sell one, possibly two of them, but I don't think they'll sell all three of them.
Well, as far as Celtic are concerned, that performance put the tin lid on a disastrous season, a shambolic season on and off the park. And for some, they won't see an Old Firm game anytime soon in the future. For one man in particular, it was his last Glasgow derby, and the Celtic captain, Scott Brown, apologised to all the supporters.
It's been a hard season. It's been a hard game as well, but Celtic will be back next season. It's a hard one for the fans as well, and we're disappointed as much as they are as well. And we're sorry for letting them down as well over the whole season because this was supposed to be our showcase season, and it wasn't to be from early doors, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't think he's underplaying it in any capacity. I think a lot of Celtic fans unhappy. Now Scott Brown in the last couple of games just got to think about what's on next season for him. 1, maybe 2 years at Aberdeen, Alison.
Yeah, but it feels like the end of an era, doesn't it? It feels like all the pillars coming down at once. They've dominated the landscape, particularly in a domestic sense, for the last decade or so, and there's just a feeling now that one chapter has ended and it's gone out with a whimper rather than the bang that they wanted. I think this season there would always have been a number of players moving on regardless of the success or the lack of it that we've actually seen, but yeah, it's just the curtain has come down on Scott Brown's tenure at the club with 14 years that he's spent, and it's nowhere near the kind of season that he would have wanted or anyone in that dressing room would have wanted for him.
Well, Rangers Celtic, that match did go ahead on the Sunday, 4-1 the score. What about the scores from the other Scottish Premiership games over the weekend? There were some tasty ones. I certainly enjoyed the match at Paisley between St Mirren and Hamilton. I was there on the Saturday. Dundee United against Ross County. I think we owe Tam an apology. Certainly didn't see that one coming. Hibs lost to St Johnstone. If you can hear rubbing in the background, that's Tam's hands. Livingston lost to Aberdeen. Motherwell 2-0 against Kilmarnock. And of course, the Ackies still battling. I can hear the Great Escape theme kicking in for Hamilton Ackies. And we'll discuss that. But first of all, what about your team, Tam? Rubbish. I mean, a stupid pass from Ryan Porteous. What's he doing?
First and foremost, Peter, it was one of the worst games I've been at all season. I mean, both teams were really poor. And if Ryan Porteous doesn't, it's just a brain freeze. I don't know what he's trying to do there. He knows himself he's made the mistake. He does really, really well initially to get his body across to O'Halloran. And then he's just got to lay it back to Paul Hanlon, or he's got to put out for a throw in or boot it up the pitch, do anything, rather than play it across your own box straight to Middleton's feet. And he obviously tucked it away. So if it wasn't for that goal, Peter, it would have been 0-0 and possibly one of the worst games in Scottish football history. So it was a really, really poor game. Hibs just didn't turn up. And I want to give St Johnstone credit for that second half. St Johnstone defended brilliantly. And I think Hibs could still have been there till now and no scored. They're devoid of any sort of creativity, any ideas. And St Johnstone's seen the game out very, very comfortably. So big wake-up call ahead of two absolutely massive games for Hibs coming up. The semi-final against Dundee United and away to Aberdeen. So there are two huge games coming up, but Saturday wasn't good enough from a Hibs point of view. They were terrible.
Yeah, they should have actually realised, I think, the enormity of it. was the fact that they could have made the game against Aberdeen just almost a dead rubber. But now it's game on. The Dons certainly sniff a bit of blood in this one. Of course, it was a great result, Roughie, for St Johnstone's B team against Hibs, because St Johnstone made 7 changes to their team.
Yeah, it's all about looking after yourself now at this time of the season. Some people may think it's unfair, but these teams have got bigger fish to fry, and they can pick whatever side they want, and some teams will suffer, some teams will have something to say about it. But no, I think if you're part of that club, that's your main interest. So I think there's going to be another few games, going to be like that, where the teams who are going for something will field weakened sides, but you just have to get on with it. But Tam's right. Hibs were poor, and I think we need to stop talking about the boy Porteous for a Scotland cap. I don't think he's there yet. He's not got the consistency. Too many mistakes throughout the season. In the future, maybe, but not at this precise moment in time.
Yeah, well, Aberdeen have certainly kept their hopes alive of finishing third. Nice to see Ryan Hedges back, Alison. He contributed with a goal as well for the Dons.
Yeah, but it shapes it up nicely just for that game at Pittodrie between Hibs and Aberdeen. It's huge now. But also, I think Stephen Glass will just be watching with interest. It's been such an odd few weeks for him. I think if you look at the performance at Tannadice last week when they just didn't turn up at all, and then getting a result at the weekend, it's just been an odd few weeks. And I think that's obviously one of the things that he'll be looking to address is a lack of consistency as he tries gets round about his own rebuild ahead of the next season.
Yeah, and of course he's well aware of the fact that this game now coming up, as Tam mentioned, against Hibs, massive.
Yeah, we've kept it alive. I think at half-time we knew the result, we knew the score at Easter Road, so it really gave us a carrot to dangle in front of the players. Can you set up what is now a massive game next Wednesday? We know what we need to do. We know what we want to set up for the final day of the season. But I'm just delighted for the players that they got the reward for their work rate today and a bounce back, like you say, from last weekend.
Sometimes momentum's the key, Tam. Are you starting to get the old squeaky bum time? Do you think Aberdeen could sneak it?
I hope no, Peter. I mean, I'm just actually glad that Stephen Glass never came in a bit earlier, because 7 points out of 9 in the league, and I think the Lee Griffiths goal for Celtic could be a massive goal for Hibs, because I tell you what, if it was tighter, if Aberdeen had hung on to win that game, it'd be touch and go. The only thing I think for Hibs supporters is Aberdeen have got to go to Ibrox in the last game of the season and possibly need to at least get a point or win the game. Even if they win. So that's the only thing. The goal difference. Hibs are only 3 points ahead, but that goal difference I think could come in very, very handy. So Hibs know what they've got to do as well. Hibs got to Aberdeen, avoid defeat, they finish third. So there's no greater carrot for Hibs. Got to be and avoid defeat in your third. So if they finish third, they'll deserve it. If Aberdeen go win the last 2 games, then they'll deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, strangely enough, though, it's not as if Rangers are going to down tools, though, Roughie. Sometimes if you've won the league and you've grafted, everybody says, well, you might have a wee bevy, you might, enjoy yourself. Not this time. Rangers will want to go through the entire season undefeated, and they certainly won't want Aberdeen taking the scalp.
No, you can hear the Rangers manager, he's got targets that he wants to achieve. He wants to get through the league undefeated. He wants a clean sheet record. He wants this record, and quite rightly so. That's the manner of the man. When you're in that kind of run, you want every record that's going about, so you can be the players and the manager can associate their names to everything that's coming. So no, I don't think Aberdeen in the last game can bank and Rangers down tools, because they're trying to achieve record points as well for the club. So no, they're not going to get an easy ride in that game. So they'll have to score a barrel load up in Aberdeen, to turn it round.
Yeah, and poor old Livingston. No sooner did David Martindale get Manager of the Month than his whole season has come crashing down. 7 defeats in the last 10. And on Saturday, he decided to adopt a managerial role that quite often the managers do adopt when they're getting spanked week in, week out, which is, it wasn't just the ref's fault, it was his other 2 assistants.
I need to watch what I'm saying, but it was a blatant handball. I don't know if you guys seen it, but it was a blatant handball, and there's 3 officials that are in very, very good positions to see it, and the reaction of the players generally tell you as well. Seen that back, so I think there was some big decisions in the game that went against us today, because I think there was probably more than one penalty that we should have got today.
Yeah, okay, it hasn't quite gone according to plan, but he'll look back, David Martindale, with a great sense of pride, Alison.
It's been an excellent season since he took over in October, I think it was. It's been largely all good news. I know they got to the final and lost the final, the League Cup final to St Johnstone, but it's been a fairly solid season for them. I think on reflection and over the piece, I think where they'll finish, they'll be pleased with, they'll be satisfied with. But I think when you're in the midst of a run that they are just now, you start to feel as though you don't get any breaks at all. But it's the curse of the awards, isn't it? No sooner does somebody claim the trophy and there's a black cloud on the horizon.
Yeah, and talking of luck going your way, Roughie, there was a moment in the Hamilton Accies game at St Mirren Park where the ball came across from the right hand side, and I think it actually just hit off David Moyo. I don't think he knew too much about it, and in the end it just trickled into the back of the net, and I thought, the gods are with the Accies. I could just hear they are digging.
Yeah.
They're ready to escape, Roughie.
Yeah, I could just imagine them after that game coming into the dressing room and high as a kite, and then somebody tells them the Ross County score. It takes you back down to earth again. But no, they've won it, so they know what they've got to do up in Ross County. But the big worry for me is Kilmarnock. Kilmarnock just doesn't. It's not going for them at all. So it's going to be it's exciting for us. The three of them are down there, and there's big games coming up. But you want to be winning games and getting into the next game on a win, and that's what they've done. They've given themselves a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brian Rice at the end of it with his post-match interview, as ever, was asked, what would it mean to get Accies out of this and keep them in the Premiership?
The biggest achievement ever that I've ever achieved. What we've had to go through this year, it's been unbelievable. So if we can do it, like I say, climbing Everest with your flip-flops on.
I don't know if you've ever attempted that, Tam, but I'll tell you, even Sir Edmund Hillary didn't attempt climbing Everest with his flip-flops on.
No, brilliant. Chiller's great value, isn't he? He's part of the great as well. But listen, there's a lot of people who want Hamilton out of the league. They're a smaller club, they've not got a lot of fans, but for me, I like them. I like Brian Rice, and I hope Accies stay up. I did tip them to go down because I just thought they weren't good enough squad-wise, but they've got that fighting spirit, as you said. They know how to dig out results, and that game next week up in Dimwell is massive. Yogi versus Chipper, two great pals and all, and one of them could find herself relegated. So it sets it up for a humdinger next week.
No, I don't know about you, Roughie. It's been we will see our head-to-head scores. I mean, if they think the league's finishing tight, the head-to-head's finishing tight, I'm going to show you in a minute. But I have to say, I think Accies could go up there and win because they played some nice football. Ross Callaghan, was star man as well. But I just think they've got that belief that they can do this again.
Yeah, I don't think any one of the two of them are so far ahead of the other. It's going to be, we keep saying these on the day. You take your chances, and they could come away with it. They've went up there before and beat Ross County. Both of them are unpredictable. There's no given. Although both of them won at the weekend, they're not going to go up to that game with a lot of confidence. So for me, it's all about taking your chances. And I don't know. I couldn't, at this moment in time, I couldn't put my finger on which one of them was going to win that game because I just don't think there's much between them.
Yeah, well, you've picked Ross County, so quite simply you think Hamilton might win it, surely. I've picked Ross County to go down.
No, there's a thinking and a hope, so the hope will come on Friday.
Oh, you're a nasty man. But the thing about it is, yeah.
If Ross County win, they're basically safe. If Kilmarnock don't win and Ross County win, they're not even in the playoff. Ross County, so what a carrot that is for Yogi and Ross County. Win the game, and you're not even in the bottom two. So, a cracker.
Absolutely. And by the way, fair play to St Mirren. They were poor in the first half, came back in the second half. Jamie McGrath scored a great goal as well, continues to impress. He had that feeling, Jim Goodwin, that quite a few of his players may well be trying to protect themselves for the semi-final.
Yeah, very disappointing. We didn't play to our best at all. I've got to give credit to Hamilton, for the way that they approached the game. We knew what we were going to get. We certainly didn't underestimate Hamilton in the build-up to the game, but I'd be lying if I said we didn't have one eye on next Sunday.
Yeah, semi-final Scottish Cup over Saturday and Sunday. But I'll tell you, at the bottom end, Alison, I was watching Tommy Wright, trackside, looking on at his team. They're not out of it. This could be a nightmare for Kelly.
There's no way that they're out of it. They can easily be dragged back into it. And it's funny, I think the impact that Kyle Lafferty has had has maybe just offered a bit of hope in recent weeks, and then all of a sudden he missed the game on the cup game on Monday night, and then I think he came off the bench at the weekend, but I'm not sure how fit he was, if he was available. If he was fully available, or if he was playing and he was still carrying a bit of an injury, but there's no way that they're out of it yet. I think, and given the form at points this season, you just wonder about the belief and the confidence within that squad. And the other thing that you would have to say is Hamilton and Ross County are very familiar with this terrain. They're battling every season to avoid the drop. Hamilton is almost the butt of everyone's joke because they're the perennial survivors in the league. It's quite a new thing for Kilmarnock and for those players at the minute to get their heads around and appreciate the gravity of the situation.
Yeah, listen, they've got St Mirren and Accies to finish, Tam.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, Kilmarnock need to take something off of St Mirren, or else they're all but relegated. They need to take a point at least to keep it alive. Tommy Wright was saying that. They go to Hamilton in the last game of the season. That could be do or die. That could be the winner stays up, winner stays in division. But Kilmarnock need to take something, because they're bottom of the league just now, and they need to finish with, I think, 4 points to get themselves out of trouble. So they're right. I think Kilmarnock got to be favourites now to get relegated. Got to be.
You think so? Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
I think they're favourites.
Ross County, Tam, great credit to you. I didn't see Ross County coming up with a win, but they did.
I think that you look at the three teams. I know St Johnstone made it. St Johnstone have actually got great squad depth. I looked at some of the players that come in. Guys like Craig Bryson come in, O'Halloran. These guys come into the team and they didn't look out of place. And I look at the other three teams: Dundee United, Hibs, and St Mirren. And by all accounts, they were all poor. And I think that's definitely one eye on next week's game, next week's Scottish Cup semi-finals. All four clubs know there's a massive opportunity to win the Scottish Cup this season. So that was the only reason that I went for Ross County and Hamilton. Plus, both of them are fighting for their lives, and I've been down there myself. And motivation when you're down there to win games is massive. And a lot of the teams, either are safe or get games to look ahead to, like the Scottish Cup semi-final. So I did think that both of them would come up trumps for a win, and they did.
Yeah, Eddie Thompson agrees with you. Kelly could go. James McLaughlin, I think he might be a United fan. He says, "Get Kilmarnock down." Not too charitable when it comes to the bottom end, and of course, quite a lot of people don't like. Barry Grant says plastic pitches should get relegated. Well, I don't think there's any place for plastic pitches, Barry, in the Premiership in Scotland. I agree with you. I don't like them, and I think they should be basically for lower leagues. I don't think it's for the Championship, but such as the country we live in and the league and the way it operates at the moment, that it's still acceptable. As far as the Premiership table is concerned, Ali, have a wee look at this. Rangers going for the 100 points barrier, and at the bottom end, look at it, it's tight. Ross County, Kilmarnock, and then Hamilton, Accies.
It's excruciatingly tight. I think there's just so little between them. I think it's massive now. The final two games are huge. I think they'll all appreciate that. It's almost about who handles the mental side of it better, who handles the pressure of the position that they're in better out of the clubs.
Yeah, and I've got to be honest about it. Roughie?
No, I was going to say, we're all talking about who's going to be bottom. See, if you're second bottom, you're still not out yet.
I know.
because Dundee on their day, if it is Dundee or Dunfermline, if it is Dunfermline, they will fancy themselves over 2 legs against whatever team is second. Because the team that's finished second is on free fall, and they'll go into the games with confidence. So, although the bottom is done in, I think second place is still a worry for these 2 clubs, whoever they are.
Yeah, still favours heavily the Premiership side, but nevertheless, we shall see on this one. There's a lot of people giving their thoughts on who they think's going down. Thanks to everyone for their views on the Old Firm game as well. An emphatic win for Rangers. Don't think anybody's debating that. Some great goals. Kemar Roof's certainly the special goal for me. But is it enough from Kemar Roof to make it into Gabriel Antoniazzi's Team of the Week?
Kyle Gawley made several key saves to ensure Accies held on to all 3 points in Paisley. Sean Rooney was up and down the right wing all day for the victorious Perth Saints. Chris Ayer may have lost, but his marauding runs caused Rangers more problems than any other player. Alex Iacovitti put his head in the danger zone to score County's second goal. Borna Baratic was back to his best, and his cross for the third goal was outstanding. Blair Spittle put in several brilliant deliveries and nearly got himself on the score sheet. Stephen Davis pulled the strings in the middle of the park, cruising through yet another Old Firm. Ross Callaghan has been Accies' best player this season, scoring once on Saturday and also rattling the bar. Ryan Kent turned Scott Brown inside out several times, and he thrived in his central role. Kemar Roof scored a brilliant double, including an instinctive chested finish. Devante Cole is Motherwell's main man. He curled one strike in and cut back the second goal in Lanarkshire.
I don't know about you, Tam. I can't believe Ayers got in that team. I think he's been a bit kind to Celtic. I wouldn't even have put in.
He had a couple of good runs towards the end of the game, mazy runs, but defensively he was oil shot. I mean, Welsh. So I don't know if Gabs has panned him to the green holds there by putting one of their players in.
I'm surprised he never found a place for Ryan Hedges.
Yeah,
he only played 15 minutes.
I would have played Ryan Hedges at centre half in front of Ayer, Alison.
Ayer for me is just never a centre half. I think he's a midfielder. I just don't think he's a defender at all. I think he just doesn't have that instinct at all. I think when you see him sort of squirming away from Morelos' shot, I just think you might have got more out of him playing him in the middle.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I mean, everybody has their say on it. But listen, you put him in the team, but I think I could easily replace Tam, the entire back four and the keeper at Celtic for next season without even thinking about it.
Definitely. I think there's massive changes afoot. Got to be at Celtic next season. I think you look at. I think I agree with Alison. He's not a centre back. Maybe playing right back or in a sitting midfield role, but not as a centre half. So as you said, Celtic have got massive appointments, 2 massive appointments for the manager and the director of football, and then the recruitment's got to be spot on, or else Rangers could go further ahead next season.
Yeah, big time coming up for Celtic and Rangers. Rangers want to improve as champions and obviously maybe even make a bigger impression in European football if that's humanly possible. There were some great seasons in Europe under Steven Gerrard as well. You can give us your thoughts on that, who you think's getting relegated to. It's all about opinions on the programme, as well as the main topics that we discuss, which have implications for not only football in Scotland but right across Europe. And one of them was yesterday's Manchester United-Liverpool game that was postponed basically due to United fans getting into the ground, getting past the security, letting off flares, throwing a can at the Sky Sports panel and also a flare as well. And there was a fair bit of scuffling outside with the police, some injuries to police officers, and I think a lot of people looking at it certainly don't want to see that aspect of it, but I wouldn't condemn the right to protest against either the way the club is run, Roughie, or indeed this real threat to English football and its pyramid system and its promotion and relegation and its existence in the top flight.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would complain with supporters showing their passion for their club, and showing a protest, but for me, somehow it was unsavoury, Peter. There seems to be a lot of sort of not a hooligan element, but there's an aggressive element out there that's no good on the eye for football. And it's not just the Man United game. We saw it in our game as well. There are people going along peacefully protesting with in the right way, but a lot of it for me yesterday was just too much. It looked as if there was a lot of people there just out for trouble, and it didn't sit well with me. But everybody has a right to protest, but I believe it should be done. The people who were outside the stadium behaved properly, and they're the ones that I think you should listen to.
I think a number of people have had their say on it, Alison. My overall feeling is it's not going to go away. I mentioned this at the point where it was, the clubs reneged on their move towards the European Super League. I didn't think it was the end of it. And then Florentino Perez came out and said it wasn't the end of it, and they'd all signed an agreement. They're still scheming in the background. I think English football has to try and take away the power of the six. That's the first thing. And then secondary to that, I think the bigger picture here is if the Man United fans want the Glazers out, when you buy that club, you're going to have someone who also has a business model in making their money back. So I think there's a certain hypocrisy attached to English football because they are devouring everything in front of them. And the more money you make along the way, some clubs spend fortunes and have to make even more money. So I think the horse is bolted as far as this feeling of an ethos of fans, having a major say in the club. The only way they'll get the Glazers out is they stop buying season tickets and don't buy merchandise.
Yeah, it's very difficult, but I think what you're seeing is a depth of anger that's been bubbling for some time, and I think what it comes down to is the suspicion that the normal fan or everyday fan would have in terms of those who are running the club. And I think there feels like a real disconnect now between those who have the authority to make decisions and those who are asked just to go along with them and buy into it. And I think you're right. I think the Super League thing was the tip of the iceberg. If it's dipping a toe in the water and appreciating that the reaction was fairly nuclear, I don't think it would be enough to dissuade them from something similar for the reasons that you've just said. I think the sums of money that are involved in it are huge. And I think for any big business and for any corporate company who are running clubs, there's always going to be an attraction in that. In terms of greater fan ownership and greater fan say on boards and in making decisions, I think it's very difficult. I think when you look at other clubs that have tried to implement it, I think it's not quite as straightforward as what you think it is. I was listening to Gary Neville yesterday talking about, it's not like going in and running your local fish and chip shop. You need to have some business acumen. You need to know exactly what it is that you're going into. But there's a real disconnect at the minute between supporters and those running clubs.
Yeah, and the other aspect of this, Tam, which we shouldn't forget, is, we are one of what I would call the small satellite countries that have all suffered at the hands of the big five countries who've basically become so greedy that they want all of the pie and very little scraps off the table for everybody else. So I look at this whole thing and I think, what a hypocritical bunch, of talking about the need to keep this sacred cow, which is the English Premier League. They've got people in second, third and fourth getting into the Champions League to the detriment of countries with a great history in the European Cup, but they don't care a jot about them.
No, Peter, they're practically buying the European competitions now. I mean, you could see 4 English clubs in the top 2 European competitions. It could easily be Man City against Chelsea and Arsenal against Man United. When was the last time that happened? That's just because there's so much money. They're buying all the best players. They pay the highest wages. They're attracting, all the top players. And as you said, it's very hypocritical when you go on and start talking about money. When you see the vast sums that Man United in general have spent. Jose Mourinho spent a fortune. They've got guys like Pogba in there, 300 grand a week, 400 grand a week. So, and it's just, as you said, it's a total and utter shambles down there. And it just seems as if the rich are getting richer, and that's why obviously there was a protest. But as you said, I don't know how you get the Glazers out. How do you get them out? Do you buy stuff? And these protests, they're very, very powerful rich people, and it's very difficult for fans, as you said, to go and and put together a consortium to buy them out. That'll never happen. So I don't know where they go from here.
Roughie, I don't know if you can remember, but a couple of years ago when they signed that lucrative broadcast deal and threw in the Chinese deal as well, I said to you, and I was laughed out of town by a number of people on the basis that I said that English football will become so strong that they will dominate quarters, semis and finals in European football to the detriment of everyone else. And that's why this has come to the fore, because quite simply, Barcelona and the Real Madrids of the world are struggling financially to try and keep pace with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know that's why it came about, the Super League, that they've all probably got round the table and identified that they are all losing money and they need a way out, and the way out was the Super League to make vast amounts of money with the deals that were coming in there, and that is the only way they're doing it, because if they were in a strong position, they wouldn't be interested in the English league, because they'd be so strong themselves. But that's the way it is. We keep using that word greed, and that's all it is. It's just they see themselves of avenues of bringing more and more money in so they can buy the best players and they can be the strongest teams. And it'll be interesting at the end of the season who's got the money to buy the Haalands and all these guys, because that's the strong point. To buy these big players, and who's got the money to go over 100 million now. It'll be interesting to see who's got it.
Yeah, I thought the funniest thing of all, Alison, was I think it was Roy Keane suggested they should be buying Jack Grealish and Harry Kane. I thought, who's paying for it? The Glazers?
Absolutely. It's just, you have to wonder, but I agree with you in terms of the hypocrisy of it all. I think that the Champions League has increasingly become a closed shop over the last decade. I think it's absurd that you have countries who one, have a strong history and prestige associated with the competition, but two, who win their leagues and don't have direct access to it. As you say, you can finish 4th or 5th in the English Premiership, and the riches of the Champions League are opened up to you. You're guaranteed your group place. You have a Scottish team, a Belgian team, a Dutch team, Scandinavian teams who are champions in their own right, and yet they can face 8 qualifiers, and some of those qualifiers are particularly arduous. You're playing exceptionally strong teams, and sometimes you can be matched with teams that have far greater resources than you do. I think there's been a huge amount of hypocrisy when I've been listening to discussions about the Super League.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of other notable things to mention. Inter Milan stopped Juventus winning 10 in a row as well. The banter over there is just as fierce, Tam, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I noticed one guy on here saying Freddie Young, wondering if they heard how great Rangers were. Freddie, this is probably not the show for you, because we have paid tribute to Rangers at the start of the programme. You need to come on at 4 o'clock, Freddie, and take the wax out of your ears. Of course, I'd love to be on the Peter and Roughie show in Italy, where Juventus are going tonto, Tam. They can't win 10 in a row either. And they've got Ronaldo.
They've had a shocker this season as well, haven't they? Must just be the pressure of going for the 10. As you said, the 2 Milan clubs this season have been good. AC Milan, I think, they're either sitting in second or were sitting in second. They've had a good season, and Juventus were miles off it. So, as I said, fair play to Inter Milan, but it just shows you going for that magical 10 is a difficult thing.
And Ajax champions. Yeah, absolutely. Ajax are the champions in the Netherlands. They won the Dutch league yesterday, Roughie.
Yeah, I mean, we all talk about the way they play football way back in the days, and they still churn out, young players through their academies, and they're still up there. It just shows you if you've got a really, really well-run club, and it's, you can buy and sell it properly. You can still be a force, and they certainly have been a force. And a cracking strip as well. I like the strip. I've always liked the strip.
When I was a boy, I mean, I hate to say this, but when I was a boy, Tam, you couldn't really, there wasn't, access to the internet or lots of shops that would stock foreign teams' strips. You had to be very, very lucky to get a hold of an Ajax top, and that was my dream. Just to get that Ajax top. Liverpool was easy, but Ajax was a real push. Sometimes you had to get your mum to make one.
I was the same. I don't know if you remember. You remember Robert stores?
Yes.
Glasgow Cross. Remember Roberts? That was where I went and got my. I loved all the strips. I loved the Parma strip with the wee laces in the top of it when they played against Rangers. I liked that one, and I used to go there and get all the strips. But you're right, you couldn't. Obviously, it was a different time for getting them on the internet. But that strip was nice. But I like the two I liked was Parma and Dortmund. Dortmund. I like yellow, bright colours.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the good thing about it, coming from an affluent middle-class family, Roughie, he would have been able to go down to Robertson's and get those tops. He would get down there with his pocket money of £35. Sure, Tam. Roughie, I mean,
failing that
day, was it difficult to get Stanley Matthews top?
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm saying if Tam couldn't get them at Robert's stores, he could just wait to get them off the back of the lorry up and just go right when they come down every second Tuesday.
yeah, absolutely.
Wait for the guy getting the pubs with him.
Yeah, Parma spelt with a Q and a Z. Yeah, absolutely. Richard Class says Greaves Sports as well. Of course, your old mate, Roughie.
Greaves,
I think it's brilliant when you get in there and you see all those old strips. Was there any strip, Ali, that kind of held a special place that you thought, a foreign one that you thought, magic?
I wasn't allowed a football strip. I had never had a football strip. My mum, I'm the youngest of four, so I had three brothers, and my mum had done the football strip thing. It was like, no football strips. It's done.
Is that right? Wow, that's an gosh, you've put an absolute dampener on that one, hasn't she, Tam?
I know. You've got to say something about Rovers.
Talk about a draconian family. Hey, no strips.
Different times.
That's outrageous.
Different times. Different times.
God. You've got to have a strip. I mean, there's some favourite ones. Yeah, with the number 14 in the back would have been fantastic with Johan Cruyff. Absolutely magnificent. Anyway, listen, the one great thing about this week has been this head-to-head. The loser takes the others out for a meal and an expensive bottle of red wine. And I have to say, Tam at the weekend just had the mother of all weekends, because here's the head-to-head, Ali. And boy, it doesn't look good for me. Roughie, look at that.
You need to shout it out. I can't see the screen.
292 for me, 293 for you, Roughie, and 307 for Tam. Now, dare I say it, Roughie, there are 2 weeks of games to go. So Wednesday the 12th, and then I think the 16th and the 17th of May, this could all change dramatically. But Tam, you're in a commanding position.
Yeah,
sorry, Peter, what's he going? 307?
307.
307,
yes.
Yeah.
Goodness me, that's nothing. Me and Peter are now the Hamilton Ackies of Ross County in this competition. We're positive. We're going for it.
By the way,
I'm like Mullible and I'm safe as houses.
Can I just say to you now, because it's got so tense, I would like to say we need all our predictions written down on a piece of paper and handed in officially before anybody else sees them. I don't want Roughie's usual spread betting on the last two sections of games.
1 point. 1 point between you and Roughie. That is so tight. I tell you, that's going to be a wire.
I have to tell you something, Tam. You could still lose it.
Goal difference.
Well, absolutely, Ali. But Tam, you could still lose it because you could just have an absolute shocker.
Yeah.
I could, but if there was one person chasing behind me, but there's two of you, the two of you would need to have a right good week. So I'm feeling confident.
Yeah, there's 30 points up for grab in every week. 2 weeks to go, 60 points.
Absolutely, and the Ackies. I mean, I am backing the Ackies to come up trumps on this one.
You should have backed them on Saturday.
I should have backed them on Saturday. I thought St Mirren would do the business. St Mirren were rubbish in the first half, but nevertheless. And I'll tell you, just on that, Alison, I'm trying to look at the championship now. Dundee, the win over Queen of the South. Suddenly they are in the box seat. They don't have to play as many games on it. I look at the teams that are in second, third and fourth in the championship, and I think whoever finishes second bottom of the Premiership could be in trouble. It's going to be really tense.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got Dunfermline and Dundee, Dunfermline and Raith Rovers playing it out now for that final place. And I think if you look at Dunfermline, I don't think they've been in that position for maybe about a decade or so. I think there'll be a real hunger and drive to take it. But I also think whoever ends up in that situation, again, we talk so often about the psychology of it, but you've been battered over the season. You've had a difficult season, whereas you're coming up against a team who have their tails up, who are confident, who have had a successful run at it. I think anything could happen. I don't think there's I don't think you would comfortably predict the winners of the playoff at all.
If anything, if Dundee do get in to the playoff final, Tam, they've got a squad that can match any of the Premiership sides. They've got a lot of backup there as well.
Yeah, I think that Dundee finishing second was huge. 2 less games. You let Wraith Rovers and Dunfermline kind of cut each other's throats. That'll be 2 high intensity games. Local rivals as well. They'll be tough fixtures, and then Dundee's sitting waiting on them. So I think it'd be very, very tough for Wraith Rovers or Dunfermline to go up this season. Looking at how they've got to beat and how many games they've got to play. So I think that Dundee, whether it's against Hamilton or Kilmarnock or Ross County, would go into it with every chance. As you said, they've got a strong squad in there at Dundee now. They're on a good run of form under James McPake, and they'll fancy their chances.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I would say, Roughie, although I am an advocate of a bigger league, I think the top league should be bigger. It'll get shouted down because of the financial situation we find ourselves in. But the one thing that you do have to give the SPFL credit for is suddenly this split has worked incredibly well, because the bottom end, there's things to play for. And at the top end, the reason why there's still things to play for is because those positions mean more money coming into the coffers.
In all the divisions, if you get a chance to look at the scale of money, and more so in the Premier League than the other divisions, I don't think there's so much a divide, but you can see why the Premier League teams want to hang on to the money they get down the scale. They don't want to give it up. And honestly, see if Kilmarnock or Ross County were to drop out of that league, the money they're losing by not being in the Premier League is drastic. I know Ross County have got an owner who's got a few bob, but it's a reality check when you drop the division of the budgets that you then fall into. So it's important for them to stay in. But you're right, the split's great. The split's great right down the divisions. I know, like, we've won our league and Queen's Park's won there, but for these teams underneath us, there's Falkirk, who are in free fall and got beat at the weekend. There's a chance they might not even get in a playoff. We've got Montrose tomorrow night, and if Montrose beat us, then they're struggling a wee bit to beat Airdrie. So it's going to be a tough one for a lot of teams who don't get into that playoff position.
Yeah, just a couple of points before we finish.
And if I was Falkirk, I'd be worried, because Ian McCall phoned me to say he was available for the morning night. So
yeah,
just shows you
absolutely. Yeah.
What teams we want to go up and what teams we don't.
Yeah, don't listen. That's only him joking, by the way, in case there's an and then the setup of a WhatsApp group. You know what happens in Scottish football? Once the WhatsApp group kicks in, that's us. We're all doomed. Anyway, just before we go, a couple of things. Alison, the social media blackout ends tonight, and then everybody starts back up engaging tomorrow. Do you think it's made a difference? Do you think it'll make a difference? Do you think the social media companies will suddenly get round the table and say, okay, we've had a think about it and we're going to do this as far as some kind of self-governance?
Not yet. I think it's raised awareness of it, and I think it's brought it into discourse, and we've all had a chat about it, but I'm not sure that it will have the effect that you want. I hope it will, but I think it might have to be harder hitting before there's an appreciation of the responsibilities that they carry in terms of policing their own platforms.
Well, I agree with you. I don't think it'll make a blind bit of difference, Tam. I think what's going to happen is until somebody is, I think, seriously hurt, whether it be psychologically, taking over the edge with this, then I think, the legislation, a law forcing the companies in each country across the world to actually make it a registration where people actually have to provide some sort of information aligned to their account. I think we haven't got a cat's chance in hell of changing this.
No, I think you're right, Peter. I think it needs to be government legislation, as you said, and it's sadly, and it's not nice to say, it might be somebody that's harming themselves, killing themselves, an athlete, a sports person, somebody to do with a sports association, that does that, and before they take action, and that is totally and utterly wrong. It should be done now. They shouldn't be waiting until something bad happens, and I just get the feeling that's what they're waiting on, and I think that's extremely sad. I agree. I think that government legislation has to come in now, because this is obviously, they've took a stand over the weekend, and a lot of clubs have been silent. But as you said, I don't think it's going to make a great deal of difference until it's really put down in paper.
And the final point, Roughie, on the back of the way we started the programme, I just wonder, do you think now when you assess all the clubs as they get close to the end of the season, we've analysed it from start to finish, we've had the madness of starting the season and of course the madness of wondering whether it was going to end, and then looking at Celtic's collapse, Rangers' dominance. Do you think we are now on the verge, with 2 games left and then going into the summer, do you think we're now on the verge of a dominant period for Rangers in Scottish football?
As it stands just now, you have to say yes. Until Celtic make a move, we don't even know who the manager is. We don't even know what his thoughts are. We don't even know what backing the money-wise he's going to have. So I think Rangers are in the pole position. I think Rangers have everything going in their way. We need to see some evidence coming out of Celtic that they have the ambition to turn it around. I'm sure they do have the ambition to turn it around, but we need to see what the quality is that's going to turn it around. Now, for me, it's all Rangers.
Yeah, I think so, Peter. Yeah, I think that Celtic have got 2 huge appointments to make, and that is the manager and the director of football or head of recruitment. I think Rangers are very, very comfortable at the minute. They're in a great rhythm. They've got that taste of winning. Steven Gerrard's a top young manager. Ross Wilson is a very good director of football. They've got a settled squad. They're going to have the money come in from Europe. So I think that Celtic have got to do something big in the summer in terms of appointments and signings, or else Rangers could go and dominate for the next couple of seasons. I genuinely do believe it.
I did mention Alison there, but Tam started talking, so I might as well shout Tam and hope Alison answers.
The story of every woman's life.
Sorry, Alice.
But I agree with what Tam said.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought you might.
It's a huge summer. It's a huge summer. I think it's the biggest rebuild I think Celtic have faced since maybe Martin O'Neill came in at the turn of the century. It's the first time there's ever been a similar points difference between the sides in 20 years, 21 years. It's a huge job, but when you look at what Martin O'Neill inherited, he still had the nucleus of a very, very strong squad. He had Paul Lambert, who'd won a European Cup. He had Henrik Larsson. He had Stelian Petrov, who would go on and make a name for himself at the club. There was Lubomir Moravcik, and there were also huge resources. If you look at the players he went and bought and brought to the club from England, those types of players now would be way, way, way beyond the reach of what Celtic could afford. So it's huge. I think it's absolutely imperative that the managerial appointment is the right one.
It's all about opinions. Hopefully you've enjoyed ours. If you like what you see, share it with your friends. Follow us on Facebook. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Hopefully you can join us tomorrow on the show. But from Roughie, Alison, Tam and myself, Peter Martin, thanks for watching.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.